You think you know how to please a woman? Andre Lazarus says most men miss the basics. Men are starving for deeper intimacy, and today my guest reveals what they need to fix first. Welcome to Taboo to Truth. I'm Karen Bigman, certified sex educator, midlife sex and relationship expert, and today I'm sitting down with Andre Lazarus to talk about what men need to understand about their own bodies so they can be better lovers to their partners. Andre is a somatic intimacy guide and expert voice on relationships, sexuality, and embodied connection. His career has followed an unconventional path from serving in the U.S. Marines to guiding people through the complexities of intimacy and desire. He's best known for his role in the UK television series Virgin Island, where he appeared as a professional surrogate partner, helping participants confront intimacy challenges alongside licensed therapists. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you for having me, Karen. Happy to be here.
Marine to intimacy expert, do tell.
Well, I do feel like those jobs are a little bit different, but as a Marine, you still have to learn how to work with people, be able to read individuals and how they interact with one another and how to lead. So I took some of the training from the military and brought it over, but they are very, very different worlds. And I feel very fortunate to have served my time. And I also feel very fortunate to not be in the military anymore.
Yeah, a little softer being in the intimacy world, one would hope.
But, yeah.
Gives you a lot of skill to help others go from that really tough man, sort of idea to learning how to be connected. So let's talk about that. What's the biggest misunderstanding that men have about intimacy?
How much time do we have on?
We can make 2 episodes out of this.
Sure, so, yeah.
As much as you got.
Yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is that in order to be a good lover or someone who is able to please a partner, that being emotionally connected is taboo or something that men aren't supposed to be experiencing. And this isn't something that I came up with overnight. This is working with women. This is working with people who are desiring more vulnerability, more realness from men. And I believe that there's this culture, hypermasculine culture, that has taught men to shut off those parts of their emotions, and in some way that was going to make them a more connected lover, which it actually doesn't work that way. We need to connect to our body. We need to connect to our emotions, even the hard ones, the ones where we feel sad, the ones where we feel insecure. And a lot of men are afraid to do that. I was one of those, men. I didn't want to show insecurity. I didn't want to show any form of frailness, because if I did, then now I'm open up to potential emotional attacks, or now my heart is more open, which means it's more likely to be broken. And that's kind of the double-edged sword, that the more that we do, allow ourselves to be emotional, yeah, we do feel a lot more, but it's a necessary element if we want that deep intimacy.
So what would you tell, I work mostly with people in midlife, and one of the hardest things, and I'm also single and dating, and one of the hardest things is to find these guys, especially later in life, that can open up and be vulnerable. And I was married to someone who, probably the downfall of our marriage was because he could not connect emotionally. And things would come out in raw moments, like when a death in the family or something, but he just couldn't do it on a day-to-day basis. So how do we start to help men become better at being vulnerable?
I would say a good place to start is encouraging the vulnerability. And what that might sound like, duh, like everyone does that. But in many ways, I don't know if I actually see that. I usually see men, whether they're in relationships or not, having to have a certain role in society of this provider, of a leader, of someone who kind of has their shit together. But then when it comes to showing a little bit of emotion or showing some weakness or showing that they don't, sometimes that can be attacked, or what's wrong with you? Why are you not I need you to be strong right now. That's a big one that I often hear is like, I need you to be strong right now. And what that teaches men is, oh shit, I can't ever be weak. I can never like fall off my horse as the king in my life, in my relationship, at my job. And what that does is now makes it feel unsafe to be vulnerable and show emotion. So just inviting in that ability, and then also practicing. I think that's the big one too, is being able to practice, us men, how we can let our guard down, even momentarily, and just see that when we do, everything's okay. We haven't shut off the masculine part of ourselves or the warrior, but that there is another piece of us that, and I'll say especially with women, the dynamic where there's a man and a woman, women also want to be able to see and feel your emotion, because if you are closed off, then that doesn't really invite them to also bring their emotion as well. So yeah, that's what like a good starting point.
I think one of the things you said is probably the biggest barrier is that vulnerability equals weakness to men. And that's what we've ingrained in our society, in our culture, certainly in North America. And maybe you can tell me, being someone who lives in Europe, if it's a little different culturally, that men are a little more, no?
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And, while living in Barcelona, which is quite the melting pot, you have people from all over the world visiting or living here. It doesn't matter if you're Eastern European or Western European or Northern African. There's pretty much the same kind of mentality of a rougher, at least exterior. Now, I imagine, because I know I feel this, that every man has a little boy living within them, and that little boy wants love and wants to be cared for and wants to be appreciated. But so much of how I feel men have been raised in society has kind of started to quiet that little boy over the years. So now it's this rough exterior, but there is something else behind that. We just need to know that we have the permission to be vulnerable, to be able to be held. Yeah.
And I hope the feminists who are listening won't get upset when I say this. I think we as women also play a role in this, because we have a certain expectation. I listen to what we want when we're, dating, and it's like the tall man, the strong man, the successful man. I mean, we look to that as going to be the person that's going to serve us best. So I think it's a little bit of changing that dynamic on both sides, and changing how we look at that.
I'm glad you said that. I don't know if I would have said that, but yes, I very much agree with you. Yes.
I've been listening to a lot of Scott Galloway's work, who's done a lot of research on men and boys, and it's been very enlightening. And I think there is this shift that needs to happen on both sides. And I think the more we dig in as feminists and having a voice, which we absolutely should and need to continue to, the less the role of the man, he doesn't know where he fits in society. And so naturally the reaction is to push back and get defensive and get more dug into who they are. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us and of all genders to say, like, okay, your role's changed, but it doesn't mean that you can't be in a healthy relationship with a female partner, or with other male partners that have more feminine energy and more, or emotion.
Like how you mentioned that, like feminine versus masculine energy. And I also believe that it's a balance. If a woman is deciding to bring more of her masculine into the relationship, that's wonderful. And as long as there's also some balance with whoever partner that they're sharing that with, where I see a lot of the my clients that I work with, where there's the imbalance, if there's too much of a competition around, one's masculine versus the other, or too much competition around one's feminine versus the other, that's where the imbalance is. So it's kind of like it's finding a sweet spot. And when they do, that's where they start to be able to understand each other a little bit more. But it's leaving room for the balance of any gender identifier to say, I can be in my masculine and also feel feminine, and vice versa. I would say I'm a beautiful combination of both. I might present quite masculine, but I actually am very feminine. And with that, I think that allows me to do this work and be able to feel connected to the individuals that come to me and allow me to be in my vulnerability. But that didn't happen overnight. I needed to learn how to do that. I needed to be curious. And I would say, again, whether it be sex education or emotional intelligence, when it comes to men learning how to do that, just in upbringing, that was non-existent.
Yeah, and I think we talk about masculine and feminine energy, but that does not mean that you are being female just because you are in your female energy and your feminine energy, and vice versa for a woman. And it does shift on how, I see it. My therapist recently we were talking about how I find it challenging because of the work I do. I guess men have a certain picture of who I am, and I'm very, strong in my convictions. And she's like, well, you're very much in your masculine energy. Are you putting out your feminine energy? And I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
So same for men. It doesn't mean that you are becoming a man, or for a woman for a man. So let's dig a little deeper then. So how would you, now I would imagine that people that come to you in the first place, unless they're coming as a couple, that they are probably a little evolved and that they're willing to work on this side of themselves. Or is that the case?
Yeah. Every situation is dependent and has, varying factors. I would say there's at least an awareness that there's something in their life that they're wanting to shift, or something that's not quite working out for them. But I've worked with people who are in their 70s and they've only had one relationship their entire life, and it was sexless and it was abusive. And then I've met people who are in their early 20s who have an amazing, grasp on their sexuality, their presence in relationship. So it really does vary, but ultimately anyone that does comes to me with at least an idea of something in their life that they're wanting to improve upon and see what's behind that door. And they have the answers within them. I'm not some guru. I'm not someone that shines anything that they haven't heard before, but I just provide different perspective for them to see how they could potentially approach that and then, find the goal and success that they desire.
So how do you approach things differently than, say, a sex therapist or a sex coach, or is that part of what you do?
That's part of what I do, but from the point of surrogate partner therapy, where I have, I would say, a unique skill set and ability, is to actually go into a physical, intimate space with a client and take them through the journey of what it's like to meet someone, what it's like to build that initial physical connection that could potentially even lead to some form of erotic sexual exploration. And that's all done within the bounds of the work of surrogate partner therapy. So where a sex therapist or a sex coach might be able to talk about certain things, I actually can physically do that with the client. And I feel that while talk therapy is very helpful, so much of trauma or stuckness in our body, it's hard to do that just working that out through talking. We need to actually go into those experiences and feel what it's like to be nervous, to be scared, to feel alive, to feel orgasmic.
I've interviewed a couple of surrogate or sex worker type professions, and I'm curious because I always wonder how you keep detached when you're in a physical relationship with someone, or is it a limitation of what that means in terms of how you work? Or let's talk about that.
It's a little bit of both. I want to say that it's important that some form of attachment does take place during the work, because the idea is we want to really bring in the reality of what it's like to feel connected to someone, to feel attached, to feel desire. But as a practitioner, it's also important to make sure that outside of that work, once that work is complete, being able to say that this individual has graduated and now it's time for them to learn all the skills that we worked on together into a relationship that they can have, because that's a limitation too working with someone like myself. You're not going to be in a long-term relationship with me. We're going to be in a relationship while we are working. And then once that ends, now it's time for you to fly out of the nest. And then I'm going to be working with someone else. So it's a little bit of both. We want people to fall for us. We want people to feel that desire so that they can learn how to process that. Because also, very few people have one relationship in their life and then never have another one again. It's a learning process to be in relationship and to love and then lose a love and find someone else new. So learning how to also understand that this relationship is going to end and know that you're going to be okay is also part of the process.
What about, like, I'm an anxiously attached person, and so I could
I'm an avoidant.
Oh, you're an avoidant? Maybe that's how it works for you. That's why you can do it.
Yeah, maybe.
But that, to me, I would think that I would just like get totally attached to you, and it'd be very hard. That would just make it almost like a rejection. Or are you blaming me for rejection, if you will?
In a way, yes. I mean, rejection happens to most, if not all, individuals at some point in their life, and it doesn't have to be just in a relationship. It could be applying for a job, or it could be wanting to like get into a certain school and you didn't get in. Rejection is like part of what it is being a human, part of that human experience. So it is also practicing the idea of like, not every connection that you're going to make is going to be there forever. And how do you hold yourself in those moments where you're feeling sadness? Because we also don't want to shut down the emotion. Oh, you shouldn't feel sad. You shouldn't feel jealous. You shouldn't feel insecure. We want people to feel all of these emotions, but know that you can feel them and it doesn't have to take over your existence, so that you can now be able to process what it's like to feel rejected or to lose someone that you really liked, and use that as education for the next time that you meet someone. Because for me, I really believe that we're always growing in any relationship we have. And who knows, like if that relationship ends, we're using all of that knowledge for the next one on how we can do it better.
Definitely. I mean, it took me a long time to understand that every relationship is a learning experience, and to look back and say, what did I learn, as opposed to this failed. But that takes a lot. So how did you actually go from like, what made you want to do this work? What made you good at it?
I moved into this work because I realized that there was a part of myself in the military that was kind of being suppressed. The feminine part of myself, the emotional part of myself. And when I knew it was time for me to leave the military, I was going into different professions, trying things out. And I had the fortunate ability to be in an open relationship with my former partner that allowed me to have different type of physical, sexual experiences with people. And in those experiences, I was learning from the individuals I was having these experiences with how healing and therapeutic our intimacy was. And that wasn't like my goal or a mission of mine. That was just me kind of learning and asking questions and, again, learning so much about myself in these interactions. But by doing so, I believe that I helped people to feel safe, to surrender into the experience. And in doing so, stuff was coming up for them. And after hearing a few times that I should do this for a living, I listened and I pursued, but it was not easy. It wasn't easy to think about the idea of going into a lot of times the work that I do is, it's challenging. And like people aren't coming to me just so that they can receive pleasure. They're coming to me because there's something in their life that's been challenging and they want to overcome that. So in that way, the work can be, challenging, but I also feel so fortunate to be able to share spaces with these beings, and really just the courage they have to come to me and go into these spaces is, I can't explain it, but that's how I kind of moved into this work. I feel like it found me rather than I was searching for it.
I hear you. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Do you work mostly with women, with couples? Does it?
I work with anyone who's desiring to come to me. Mostly, I would say women are called to work with me, but I also work with men. I work with couples. I'm open to anyone who is interested in learning more about themselves. And I think what I really enjoy about my work is that I learn so much about myself from every person that I interact with. So, like you said, like the constant learning, I'm a slut for learning. I love it. It fuels me. I never want to be at a place where I'm like, I know enough or I know it all, and now I'm just like kind of on this pedestal. No, I learn just as much from my clients as they're learning from me.
And I think that is so sexy. Like for me too, if somebody is not curious and is very stagnant, I don't have, I get bored. I need to be learning. Yeah. And I think as people in healing professions, like we want to help people feel better about themselves, and we take that on and we take on their pain too, which can be difficult.
Yeah.
So do you work with, just because of that, do you work with fewer people at the same time, or how many clients would you have?
Yeah, I definitely, I space out the client work that I do because I want to be very present for the people I'm working with. And I also need recharge time for myself. So I can't say like there's a certain number, but there's, I have like a cohort that I'll work with, and then I'll take some time, and then I'll just be scheduling clients kind of like down the road so that they're also giving themselves time to prepare, because this can be really emotional, but also really expressive and expansive work. So there is a time period in between how many people I'm working with.
What are some of the areas that you would work with when starting with, I understand that not every person has the same issues that they're coming to you for, but generally they're probably coming for similar ideas. So what are some of the main areas that you would work on with somebody, and how, on a high level, obviously?
Some of the main reasons that people come to me are past or present trauma, sexual trauma, people who have curiosity around specific kinks or desires that they've wanted to explore but haven't felt safe to explore, any form of pain or sexual dysfunction, men or women, and how they can use the tools that we're working on together to just improve the experiences that they're having. So, for instance, for men, it might be people who struggle with rapid ejaculation or erectile dysfunction. For women who might be having a challenge with vaginismus from past or present trauma, how to move slow, how to allow the body to feel safe again, because it really is like we have so much capability within us, but something that has happened in our past, we can lose sight of that. So those are some of the things that we work on, and it's a very slow process. This isn't something that just like happens overnight. It can take some time, but once people feel safe enough in their body to allow themselves to feel any sensation, then they start unlocking these little parts of them that I don't believe were ever gone. They were just dormant.
Is it okay if I ask you like some of the techniques that you use, particularly for men? Because I have a large male audience, and I have had experiences with guys where one is the premature ejaculation, but for the most part, I find the opposite. I have men that have trouble ejaculating. The ED has been less of a problem with the men that I've been with, lucky for them, or maybe they've been using aids like Viagra, but I've seen a lot of difficulty ejaculating.
Yeah. There are some tools. I actually have an online course geared towards men on how to overcome some of these challenges. But one of the things I would say for delayed onset ejaculation is learning how to reconnect with your body in a way that you haven't connected with it before. Generally, the way that we masturbate as men, we learned when we were in our early years, 12, 13, generally where we start, and we don't really change. We kind of adopt that same practice over and over and over. And sometimes that practice can make us feel numb, or we feel disconnected from the experience because it's just it becomes repetition. So one of the things that I do with clients is we take whatever, after an intake and doing a little bit of an assessment, we take whatever you have been doing and we shelve it for a period of time. And I give you homework. And the idea is you're learning how to reconnect or connect with your body in a way that you've never connected with before. And it might feel clunky. It might feel like, oh, this isn't working, but it takes practice. And what you start learning is, oh, there's parts of my body that have sensation that I never explored before because I was so hyper fixated on this zone or getting in and getting out. And sometimes, or I would say oftentimes, that puts us in our head. And when we're in our head, we are not connected to our body. And when we start to be able to have more of that brain-body connection, that's when those sensations start to come online, and orgasm, ejaculation, non-ejaculatory orgasms can happen.
And what about the opposite for premature ejaculation? I would imagine it's similar.
Same. It's similar. It's similar in unlearning what you've been doing and learning a new way of approaching your body. And generally I usually use the term rapid ejaculation because when we think about the idea of premature, that means that there's like a timeline that we're supposed to have like been like holding out until we're able to like reach that point of ejaculation. So with rapid ejaculation, a lot of it's just moving slow. Oftentimes when I talk to men, like the amount of time that they're spending touching themselves, and by the time they've orgasmed or ejaculated, is less than 3 or 5 minutes. And when we elongate that and start to practice desensitizing certain parts of our body that are overly sensitive, because that's how we're training with masturbation, we're training for sex or the intimate connection with someone. So if we practice a slower pace, new ways of being in our pleasure during self-pleasure, that will translate over into the sex that we're having.
Let's talk about erectile dysfunction, because that's a huge one. And physically, 20% of men in their 20s, 30s, et cetera, goes up 10% as you age. How do men start to work through the shame of having it? How do they, I don't know, I guess in some instances, having an erection altogether becomes something difficult as you age. How do you work with men who are having that challenge?
Very gently. To start, very gently, to say that, wherever you are in your present, that doesn't mean that's where you have to stay. And yes, there are, ED meds and there are surgeries that people will do as sometimes a quick fix. A lot of times doctors will prescribe ED medication because someone comes in and says, I'm having a hard time staying hard or getting hard. Okay, here's a prescription. And yes, while these medications are helpful, the majority of men, and you can look at the research on this, the majority of men that are struggling is not something physiological, it's something psychological. There's something about their experience of pleasure growing up or in the present that has them disconnected from what is their body, what is their pleasure. And so that's the things that we do. We work on that. We'll work on learning how to reconnect with yourself, love yourself again. And it takes time, and again, overnight, but with, 1 to 4 months of work, I've yet to work with a client that didn't have a drastic impact and shift in the way that they were self-pleasuring, in the way they were having sex, in the erections that they were having. And there's also, I would say, a hyperfixation on the erection, on penetration. And because of that, again, that puts us back in our head and we feel disconnected from the experience because we're like, shit, my cock isn't working. Why am I here? Right? I might as well just, go home. Men, women, I would say, you hear this more from women, but slow pace, touching, kissing, using your hands, using your mouth, all of these things are ways that you can enjoy a sexual experience without even needing to get to penetration. And when you take that time, all of a sudden, and you start feeling safe to kind of just melt into an experience, your body will start coming online. But if you're trying to get to that point of erection, penetration as quickly as you can. Now you're getting in your head, and the chances are you might not have that experience that night. So I also like to work with people on removing the expectation or the pressure to get hard, to go to a penetrative state, and that all the other experiences can be just as impactful and delicious.
And I've heard this repeatedly from people like yourself, that it's like, just slow the fuck down. It makes everything better. And I say it as well. Are there 3 to 5 sort of tips that you can give, or things that listeners can do to start getting better connected with their bodies?
Sure. The first one is removing pressure or expectation on yourself to show up in a certain way. And that's, again, often easier said than done. But going into any experience, whether it's self-pleasure, whether it's a sexual experience, and saying, I need to do this, or I have to be this person in bed, or else I'm not going to be wanted or desired, or this person's going to be bored and want to go somewhere else. Just be yourself. Come in with a genuine, kind, compassionate attitude, and an attitude that says, I'm not just here for my pleasure. I'm here for this person, the other person that's across from me. I want to learn about their body. I want to ask questions. So come in with as little expectation as you can, and that takes some of the pressure off of you. Another one is breathing. I would say majoritively when I'm in session with anyone, there's a lot of shallow breathing or no breath at all. And the more that we breathe, the more we allow our body to feel relaxation. Like, it's the difference of, there's no such thing as TMI, I imagine, on these podcasts. So it's like, if you have to take a poop and you're there and you're bearing down and nothing's happening, when you allow yourself to breathe, to relax, your body relaxes. So breathing is so essential. And then a third one is practice, is how you are self-pleasuring, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. How you're self-pleasuring is generally how you're going to be performing in the bedroom. So instead of you've only got 5 minutes before that next meeting, or you're about to go to bed and you just want to fall asleep, not saying never do that, but instead of only taking 3 to 5 minutes and getting this thing, started just so that you can finish and then get it out of the way, take your time. Spend 10, 15, 20 minutes self-pleasuring, move slowly, bring in oils, touch other parts of your body. And that will also start to awaken other sensations that you might not know were alive. And that you could bring into these experiences that you're sharing with someone else. So practice is another one that I would say is very important.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.